cycle is under Kritika Nakshatra. And the easiest way to describe Kritika is like this. Think of a butcher knife cutting away everything until there's only the bone, like cut to the bone. So there's nothing left except the bone. So it's about cutting away. It's also about our attachment to the divine. So think of a cord, right? An umbilical cord, like us to the divine. And so what Kritika is about, and what this next 2 weeks is about, is our connection and cutting away all of that which impedes our connection. Kritika Nakshatra is called the catalytic activator. You can think of it in two symbols. The first is a sharp object, so a knife, a razor, but something that cuts through, cuts to the bone. The other symbol is fire, something that can nourish or something that can burn, destroy, purify. So Kritika is about cutting away the superfluous, cutting away the impurities. And then the fire, the same thing. You're burning away the impurities. And the point is to get to a state where you are aligned with your divine purpose. And what makes us not aligned with our divine purpose? First of all, think about when you are in alignment with your divine purpose, when your life does feel right. How do you feel? You feel light, you feel easy, you feel in your flow. And when does it stop feeling like that? When you're overrun by your thoughts, when you're overrun by your emotions. And so Kritika is about cutting those items away and looking at them for real, not in a way that humors you, not in a way that makes you feel nice about it, but looking at things for the critical, harsh reality that they are, and cutting away the impurities so that you can return to the state of your divine nature. When you think of Kritika, think hot, cut, and clean. Some traits of Kritika people are dynamic, strong-willed, critical attitude, straightforward. They have a regal aura about them, a sharp tongue that seeks perfection, but it's not vengeful. These are people who want you to look at yourself rationally, have an inner stability rather than be reactive to outer circumstances, get complete control over your animal nature, maintain the ethical code of conduct that you deem to be correct, and maintain purity of that code of conduct by not succumbing to urges or losing control. And so here are some ways that it expresses. First is through the body. Again, think hot, cut. These are Kritika women and men. Clean, Florence Nightingale. Her entire theory of nursing was sanitation. Give the soldiers baths, clean the facilities, create hygiene, have fresh air. And of course, in her time, she encountered men who didn't think that a woman would know how to do this. And a feature that I continue to find in Kritika has to deal with gender expectations, gender roles, and sexuality. So continuing on the theme of clean, Kritika native women talk about their bodies, and they talk about nutrition, and they talk about how in order to have a healthy body, it needs to be clean on the inside. And so they talk about aging, social expectations, what women's bodies look like, how women feel about themselves, and they begin to incorporate this sage like disconnection with the higher self. So what the world sees of you versus who you really are. And so this is communicated through how you feel about yourself through your body, how you're seen in society, how women should feel about themselves, how women are made to feel about themselves, and to reorient the way that women feel about themselves in order to reconnect them with their power. So in true Kritika nature, the basis below what's happening on earth is to connect you with your divine nature. Kritika is about differentiation, and it's about the one that lights the way. Think about a torch, the one who goes first, the one who shows others the way. It's associated with language. Kritika natives invent languages that are used. And the reason that languages are invented by Kritika natives is because they understand, they have the divine knowledge, and they also have the awareness that they have the divine knowledge. And so those languages, those modes of communication that are currently intact in the world won't do for them because they have to go first. They have to light the way. They have to show others the way. And this is what Kritika is about, is having a critical perspective, putting together the realities of situations in ways that other people hadn't seen that reality, and then presenting it to the masses. Kritika is associated with Agni, fire, and Agni has to do with digestion as well, so digestive fire. Think about critical thought. Critical thought is not putting together, when I make these videos, I don't put together things and then put them in a certain order. It can't work like that. It's the same with anybody who performs critical thought. You pull together different information, and people have seen this information, they've thought of it, but you put it together, you digest it. You digest it, you think about it, and the product that comes out is something different. So it's not the sum of what goes into it, but in fact, it's a different product. And that's the way that Kritika works with the Agni, the fire, is that there's a purification. So you're looking at all of these things and you're purifying them, you're cutting them down to their most basic levels and then presenting them to people for other consideration. Now, something about critical thought and something about people who perform critical thought as part of their life path. These are not people who have an easy go at it. These are not popular opinions to have. These are things that don't go over well at a dinner party. But these are things that are the path of Kritika natives. Their job is to show us ourselves in the truest light, to see flaws and shortcomings, but in so doing, we get to know the truth instead of walking in ignorance. So we're walking in light instead of in darkness. There are different ways that people connect with the divine. This can be through art, this can be through verbal language, this can also be through dancing. And Kritika natives are known for their very body-oriented dancing performances. And the function of Kritika to overcome our animal urges is also indicated with the fact that a lot of these natives will have tribal, animal-like themes in their performances. But you'll notice the same qualities here, that these are people who are original in what they're doing. They're not taking their ideas from anybody. People take ideas from them. They are the ones who create the original path. They are the ones who create a new language in whatever it is that they're doing. A really prominent theme is, of course, overcoming one's animal-like nature. And two Kritika Sun natives are Marcus Aurelius, who's known for Stoicism. Stoicism is the idea of a really regimented, harsh life in order to establish discipline. And it's about cutting away the superfluous so that you only focus on what it is that you're doing. Che Guevara talked about when he and others were surviving in the wilderness, when they're cut off from society, and how difficult it was without any of modern comforts, how they began to feel like animals. And it was only through the strictest dedication to what their work was and that mental adherence, that stoicism, that they could retain the elements that made them feel human. So Kritika is about being virtuous in whatever code of conduct you have adopted. And it's about being about your work, focusing on your work, and it's looking at what is in the way of you operating in your divinity. Kritika is associated with the deity Shiva, which gets to the truth by cutting away what is not true. More specifically, the function of this deity is to cut away at the ego, to cut away and always dissolve the ego. Because what is it that's stopping us from understanding what is true and what isn't true? Usually it's our emotional attachment to something. It's our attachment to what we think a family should be. It's our attachment to what we think a work company owes us. It's our attachment to what we think a government should do for us. It's not actually what happens, it's our mental and emotional attachment to what we think should be. And so Kritika cuts away what should be, so we're looking at only the stark reality of what is. And this is the work of Emil Durkheim, Vladimir Lenin, Max Weber. They are theorists who cut apart and stratify our concepts of society. And when you look at the strata objectively, without emotional attachment, you begin to see something different. So that leads us to people who then begin to live revolutionary lives. And what are considered revolutionary lives are the people who have looked at societies critically, and so Kritika becomes associated with this critical thought and also with this revolutionary thought. So the point of Kritika is to be about our work, to have our connection with the divine, to operate in our divine presence, and to cut away that which interferes with our divine work. And once again, this is not always a fun time. This is not always a fun life that you live if you choose this kind of work. So to illustrate this point, we're going to talk about Rosa Parks. We see nice pictures of Rosa Parks, and she looks like a nice lady who decided to sit on the bus because she was tired after work. That's what the public was sold. However, that's not the reality of what this story is. The reality of this story is that she was a civil rights activist who went through years of nonviolent training because this is what the society looked like. This is what was awaiting her on the streets. And yet she persevered through that. She was not the first person who was selected. There are stories about this. The other Rosa Parks had a child but didn't have a husband, and at the time that was considered something that would have taken the media off track. So that couldn't have been the right person because they needed somebody who was essentially flawless in their life, and Rosa Parks better fit the bill. But when she sat down on the bus, that was planned, that had been planned. The attorney who would take it over had planned it. The boycott was already, like all of that infrastructure was already set up, very, very Kritika. Who was in place? All of the structures in place, why each person was in the position that they were, because they could contribute to that work in the best way possible. So everything was very, very carefully done, very carefully orchestrated, first thing. So it wasn't an accident when she sat down. The second thing is, she didn't know if anything was even going to come of that. What she did know is that there were going to be personal consequences, because there are always personal consequences to this kind of work. When you're doing something important in the world, she could have been somebody who was put in jail and just lost her job, and that would have been the end of it. What's not known about Rosa Parks is that after she didn't give up her seat, is that she lost her job. Her husband lost his job, cut off. They had to leave Montgomery, they went to Detroit, and for the next 30 years until they died, neither one of them ever had steady employment again. So we know her now for what her work was, but her life wasn't easy. Nobody rewarded her for doing what she did. So if you are about this work, be about this work and don't look for your rewards. Be like the sun person, be like the Kritika. That's the message. Don't look for your rewards. They're not coming on this earth. If you're doing important spiritual work, that's not necessarily socially valued work. That's not something that people are going to like, that's necessarily comfortable for them to hear. The issues that she was fighting for in the 60s are still very prevalent today. And even watching this video, I'm curious how many people are having reactions just to hearing me say this. But these attitudes are still alive and well. So my point, she didn't know if she was just going to be one more woman who got arrested and then for the rest of her life suffer consequences for having stood up and for having taken the action that she did. She had no idea what was going to happen, just like you have no idea what's going to happen. So are you about your work or are you not about your work? That's what this energy needs you to look at. What is going on? What are the mental and emotional blocks that are interfering with your divine connection, that are interfering with your ability to do your divine work? That's what this energy is asking you to look at. And whatever shouldn't be there any longer, it's asking you to look very closely at that and burn away or cut off what no longer belongs there. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising. This new moon energy is taking place in your 12th house. And 12th house is the hidden, behind the scenes. It's the things, what happens in private. It also has to do with your dreams, your sleep, your spirituality. And what the new moon energy is asking you to look at is, I'll try to say in terms of your spiritual life and your behind the scenes, your sleep, like where you retreat, how you take your rest, how you engage with the divine. What is impeding that? Because you know how you do it best. You know how you operate best in your flow. And where you can look for some deception around that is you have Neptune in the 10th house of career, public reputation, and it's aspecting the sun and moon, and this would be in your 12th house. So what you are supposed to be like in the world, the ideas of what you should adhere to, the ideas of what should be okay with you, how things just go. This new moon energy is saying, wait and look closer at those things. Where are you emotionally attached to some ideas? What thoughts do you have that aren't actually serving your spiritual life, that impede your ability to rest and retreat and regroup? 12th house is about endings. So the culmination of things. Maybe it's time for something to be over. And Kritika energy would suggest that it is. But then career, public reputation, 10th house is telling you, no, hang on to this. This is still fine to do. And what this energy is saying is that's deceptive. That's not serving you. That's something that you're attached to. You know how you operate best. And that's what this Kritika energy is having you look at. Where are you operating in your strength? Now, something else to look at is in the 6th house, which is across from your 12th house. 6th house is your day-to-day activities. How are the ways that you are spending your days? And how are the ways that you are using your energy throughout the day? Interacting with your coworkers, your habits, your routines, your schedules. How are those contributing positively or negatively to your spiritual life, to your rest, to your ability to retreat and regroup? And again, if something needs to be finished, are you still acting it out in your daily life? Or are you going to let it be finished? So what the Kritika energy again is asking you to look at is, what is impeding your behind the scenes, your rest, your spirituality, your place of retreat, your endings, whatever it is that is the issue for you right now. Whatever's coming from your 10th house is Neptunian, so that's not clear. At best, it's not clear. At worst, it's deceptive. And look at how you're playing things out in your 6th house. Is that lending it to you? So what needs cut? What needs purified so that you can come to the place where your spiritual and divine connection is at its best and that you are operating in your true divine nature? In terms of if you are going to do a new moon ritual, this is a great one to do because this is the Aries new moon. So this would be the first new moon in the Vedic cycle. Agni, the fire component, absolutely use fire. And this would be a beautiful one to write down your attachments. Write down, and it doesn't have to be a list. It can be squares, it can be small scraps of paper, however you want to do it, however creative you want to get. But where you realize that your thinking was flawed, your instruction was somebody else's idea of how to do it. Any place you understand that you've changed how you're doing things. Because in this chart, your Uranus, it's also in the 6th house, so you're doing things differently. So all of the ways that you're doing things differently, you celebrate those. All of the ways that you were taught to do things that you're not doing them anymore, can celebrate what those have done for you, but then also burn them because they don't have a place in your life anymore. And where you're headed and where your path is headed, you need to be made of different stuff than you were instructed. The people from your past may not understand where you're going and they may not understand your vision. So any attachment that you have or that you've been carrying to what people should understand about you or what those relationships should look like, that's where your delusion lies in this chart. Those are the things now to sever.